Three. Hello, welcome everyone. So glad you're here today or tonight if you're watching the replay. We are here with coach and author Jonathan Heston. Welcome.
Hey, I'm super pumped.
Yes, this is going to be awesome. If you're watching the replay, go ahead and skip to the 2-minute mark and we will get the show on the road then. You are going to want to be with us today or tonight in this session because Jonathan is going to share this amazing tip that I first heard from him on a Facebook Live video 5 or 6 months ago. It was a game changer for me. It totally deconstructed my sense of overwhelm, and we're excited to share it with you. But before we do that, I have to ask you a question because I know you're a drummer. Is that right?
Yeah. How did you know I was a drummer? I'm a drummer.
I know you were a drummer because when AJ recently shared his podcast episode that had a song on it in the Facebook comments, you put that you shared a song and you said that you were a drummer, and
Yep.
that's where I got it from. So my question is, who is a better drummer, the drummer of Nirvana or David Grohl?
Wait, what?
It was a test and you passed. Yay!
They are amazing. They both are amazing, and both sides of them, of the one. No.
Yes.
Oh man. Speaking of drumming, though, if your people love drummers, the Tool, there's Danny Carey's has a Tool video that just got put out by Vic Firth like 6 months ago or something, of him drumming one of Tool's songs, and it is like, his drumming is amazing. It's like my brain can't even comprehend it. I'm like, what's going on? But yeah, no, Dave Grohl's a beast. Love that guy.
He is a beast. He's like so multi-talented. Oh my goodness.
I'm glad I passed the test.
Yes, you did. Very few do. No, just kidding. It's pretty obvious where he came from, where he got his start. So I know this isn't planned, but I'm really curious now. How many seconds or minutes of hearing a song played by a drummer or hearing a song with a drummer, how soon can you as a drummer recognize that's a talented drummer? How is it, like by the first chorus or the second verse?
On a CD, it's actually harder to tell on a CD because most people they can sync it up to a click track and everything. So you can't tell if someone is like naturally locked in very well on a CD right away anymore. So live though, you can tell generally within like the first 20 seconds, you can kind of tell if they have it, whatever it is, or not.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my opinion.
That makes perfect sense, that it has more to do. So does have more to do with being locked into the rhythm than it does with posture and formation.
Yeah, some of the best drummers, like, they're not even flashy, but they just are so rock solid on how like consistent they are with their timing. And they'll like play super simple stuff, but you can feel that they're an amazing drummer, even if they don't do like something crazy. Or some people are doing crazy stuff, but they're not coming back in on the right beat. Like they're a little bit delayed or a little bit ahead, and it's just like it just doesn't get in the groove as much. So let's talk about overwhelm, huh?
Yeah, that's so, it's a really good transition, I think, because to me, not someone that's not a drummer, when I watch a drummer, it does seem overwhelming because they're thinking of so many things at once, which totally makes sense for tonight's topic.
Yeah.
So share this great tool, this great practice with us.
Yeah. So if you're a creator, if you're a writer, if you're like, so I've written a book, and I know in my process of writing the book, like you have all these ideas, you have all these things like coming in. It's like, hey, should I talk about this? And you're dealing with all of this. If you're a business owner, there's like, hey, there's marketing, there's sales, there's posting, there's ads, there's employees, there's taxes, there's like all this. If you're a creator of video, like there's editing, there's shooting, there's like planning your shoot. So bottom line, if you're a creator, you probably deal with overwhelm on one hand or another. Especially if you have kids, especially if you're married and you put that all into a pot, it's like, man, there's a lot to do. And so what I wanted to riff on, so Meg reached out and she's like, hey, can you riff on like overwhelm and kind of riff on the 4Ds and all this stuff? So I said, yeah, I can do that. And I want to do a little bit more. So I want to talk about what's the root of overwhelm. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the root of overwhelm so you can identify and become aware of what is actually happening and kind of change that core behavior, which will actually help you not deal with overwhelm at all. Then we'll talk about a simple process that you can do when you are experiencing overwhelm. And it's just very like pen to paper, clear, simple process that you can, like, if you're in that place where like you got so much to do and you don't know what you want to focus on, and you're like, I got so much to do, and you feel all that pressure, but you can't, like, you have a hard time getting into something or starting something, and you're like, you just don't get into flow, and you're kind of like procrastinating or like trying to do something, and it's not just, you're not getting it across the finish line. What can you do in that place where you're just feeling all that pressure and it's just like sitting on your shoulders and you're like, So that's what we're going to do. So let's talk about the root of overwhelm. In my mind, there's a lot, but what we're going to riff on today is, I'm going to go ahead and start this and drop into my iPad. You see my screen?
Perfection. Yes.
Okay, cool. So this is what we're going to do. These 4 steps are what we're going to do. But before we get to that, what happens with overwhelm is essentially we're standing here, we're running our business, we're taking care of the kids, we're doing our creative work, we're giving our gift to the world. We're standing here, and our mind, what you focus on expands, and our mind is constantly saying, hey, you should do this, you should do that, you should. So essentially our mind, if we buy into all of the stories, it's like shoulding on us. you should. And so like we see an ad and we're like, oh yeah, I need to adjust my landing page. I should do that. Oh, I should add that chapter to my book. Oh, I should make a video on that. Oh, I should update this. I should update that. And what happens is, like, we start creating all these shoulds in our life. And so even if you look at like the areas of fitness, you probably have shoulds. If you're dealing with overwhelm, areas of family, you probably have shoulds. In the areas of your business or your finance, you have shoulds. If in your areas of faith and your spiritual connection, you probably have shoulds. In your areas of even fun, it's like, I should take a vacation. I should meditate. I should. And so like our head is basically saying all of these shoulds. Well, the essence of should is, I am not enough now. I need to blank. And so what's happening with your life force energy when you're saying shoulds is you're developing a Grand Canyon where it's like, hey, I'm not good enough right here. I should be right here with, the completed sales page, with, the thing with the family, the thing with the fitness. And what happens is there's this huge gap between where you are right now, your reality, your current reality, and your current experience, and where you want to be. And in that gap, the bigger that gap is, the more shoulds you have, the bigger that gap is. And I'd invite you to consider that gap is literally just a huge drain of your life force. It's a huge, just like your brain, your heart, your energy, your integrity. It's just like, like it's just draining out. And the bigger this gap gets, the harder it is to actually get into action, the harder it is to have momentum, the harder it is to have, like, to feel alive, to feel energized, to feel flow, to feel in a place where like life is expanding and you feel like you're putting one foot in front of the other. And it gets harder and harder to actually take action. And so part of the name of the game is closing this gap. And I'm not saying you have to close it completely, but when you're aware that when you're saying all these shoulds, you're basically saying, I'm not good enough right now. I want to be better. I need to be better. But you're not actually taking action to be better. You're just thinking it. And so that life force energy is draining out. And so right away, the first thing is like, stop shoulding on yourself. If it's something that's a high priority for you and it's really important, make an action plan, put it into action, put it on your calendar, like figure out a way to make sure that it happens and that your brain knows that you're working towards it. I don't say I should work out if I have a workout plan, if I'm working out. Like in my head, I'm not saying, I need to work out more. If I just know, like, boom, at this time during the day, it's going to happen. And so be aware, because often people will should on themselves stuff that isn't even them, stuff that's not for them in this season, for them in this time. Because any shoulds that you're carrying in this moment, the truth is you only have this moment, you only have this now. And if you're carrying a should right now, then what's happening is you're projecting into your future, you're futurizing, and you're losing power. So tell the truth about where you're at right now and what you want to do right now. And if you're doing that, then you shouldn't be doing anything else. And so you just want to build up the habit of being aware of shooting on yourself and then closing this gap. So the difference between where you want to be and where you are right now, there's a lot less strain on your life force energy. You don't have this huge, like, just Grand Canyon at the bottom of your life force bucket. So you've tracking with me so far, Meg? Any questions that you have?
Yeah, that is so helpful, and it's such a powerful visual. The drainage, the suckage of energy down this canyon, this gap. So, and I totally forgot before we started to invite our folks, our friends that are watching, any comments or questions that you have for Jonathan, please put them in the comment thread below and we will get to them before we sign off tonight. So he is here. You have full access to him. He has a wealth of knowledge. So put those comments and questions, quandaries, gifts, memes. We welcome all of them.
Totally, especially the memes. Love it. Okay. So the first thing to be aware of is if you're feeling overwhelmed, I guarantee you that you have a whole bunch of shoulds that you're carrying around. And when you're carrying around like this huge bag of shoulds, or you're draining your life force energy, and that there's a big Grand Canyon gap happening at the bottom of like your life force bucket, it gets harder and harder to take action. And the thing is, you can only knock out one should at a time. And so when you really get into the present, there is no should. There is what you're doing. It's that simple. And so what is a tool to kind of get from that place of like huge, let's say you have a huge Grand Canyon and your life force energy is just dumping out, to the place where it's like, okay, let's shore that up. Let's get that gap closed a bit. So one of the things to do is to make a plan. So let's go into that. There's four steps: dump list, the 4Ds, the do's, and then your calendar. So the first step is the dump list. So let's just talk about the dump list. You would be shocked, for me, when I carry shoulds and I realize like, oh, I'm overwhelmed, you'd be shocked. Our brain doesn't know the difference between like a little tiny 5-minute should and a 30-hour should. Like it allocates the same amount of energy. It's just like all your brain knows is that, hey, boo, that's a gap. Hey, you're out of integrity. There's a gap. There's a gap. There's a gap. And so with the dump list, it's incredibly important to get raw and real with yourself and just just pull out a pen and paper. I like using like a huge, some people like to type this. Some of my clients like to type this. I like to get I have a huge piece of paper over here. So I like a huge piece of paper and a pen because I just like having the wide open space. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, that's just, I've heard you talk about the big piece of paper before, and I was wondering, is it one of those adhesives on the back of the Post-it? Like a giant?
Yeah, I like using those. Yeah. Or the art pads, like the big art pads. Yeah. And so I'll get a small pen and I'll just like anything that's a should, like anything that I'm carrying around, this energy of like, oh, I need to do that. I should be doing this. I'll just like dump it out. I'll just like write it out and just like sit down 10, 15 minutes and be careful. Don't say you should do what I'm telling you to do because that's adding to the problem. If you want to do this, pull out time on your calendar. You can do it right now as I'm talking if you want, or schedule it on your calendar, but don't just sit here and like, oh, I should do that thing that Jonathan talked about. Because that's the cycle, right? So we're trying to break that cycle. We're breaking that cycle in half. So dump list. Here's what you do. Step 1, you just dump everything. I don't care if it's like, I need to text that person. It's going to take you 30 seconds. I don't care if it's like, I really want to get my book done this week. Like whatever it might be, you just dump it on the dump list. You just write it out like crazy. I'm going to actually stop broadcast and look at the camera because this part's really simple. So you put it out and you write it all out like crazy, one thing after another, and you sit with it and you just keep putting stuff on it. because you will be shocked. Most people, when I first did this, I had like, if I remember correctly, like the very first time I did the dump list, I probably had like 80 things of just like, and I'm carrying, like, can you imagine how much life force energy I was carrying around, where I felt like I wasn't enough, where I felt like I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't doing enough, that I was stressed, that I was overwhelmed. I'm carrying all that around, massive life force strain, because I'm carrying around all these like 80 different shoulds. And for some reason I'm telling myself like that I'm going to do that day. It's just like, it's just funny. So yeah, totally. It's just like, it's totally unrealistic how our brain just plays with us on different things. So when you're doing a dump list, there's a few different areas, and I already wrote them down, but I would be looking at the area of your fun, your fitness, your family, your finance, and your faith. Now, you might be just feeling overwhelmed, like in your business or your finances, but I guarantee you there's ripple effects with all of it. And so to make this super powerful, I would like is there any area of the, like, if it's fun, like, are you saying, oh, I should relax, I should take a bath, I should go on a walk, I should like maybe health, fitness stuff, like getting it all on paper is really powerful. And you'll start to see when, as that paper grows and all those things start to grow on the paper, you'll start to see how much you're actually carrying around in your subconscious and how much there is just like, that's the first thing. You'll notice how much you're carrying. The second thing that you may notice, however, is how a lot of it isn't really that important right now. It's stuff that like you told yourself, hey, I should do this. And you told yourself 4 weeks ago, it's not that relevant. It's not like an 80-20 task. It's not something you need to even be carrying this week or worrying about this week. And you're like, like what? So what we do after you make your dump list is we do the 4 Ds. Okay. So the 4 Ds is, we're going to put it into, I use color markers when I do this, like full blown do this. But it's do, it's delete, it's delegate, or delay. So these are the 4 Ds. So after you do your dump list, and I just really encourage you to put all of it on there, because I promise you that text that takes 30 seconds is still taking up energy. So put it on there. So, because as you're putting it on there, your brain is shortening that should gap, because you're taking action towards all this, right? So then you go through the list and you're just like, okay, what are the things that I really want to do? Like, what are the things that are really important? What's the 80-20 for me to do? Within, different people run different timelines, but my recommendation is within the next week to 2 weeks at max. What are the things that I'm actually going to do? And you highlight those. What are the things that you can delegate? So maybe this is something that's like, man, like I'm feeling a lot of overwhelm right now. Like I could probably actually ask, like I could ask Chloe to do that, my wife, or I could hire someone to do that. Or like I was working with someone, it's like mowing the yard. It's like, hey, like you could just toss $50 at that problem and solve the problem by having someone else do that this week. So delegate, like get your VA to do it, get your team member. If you're an entrepreneur and you have like a team, can you delegate that to one of your team members? Can you delegate that to your VA? All that good stuff. So delegate is the next one. Oh, delegate's right there. Delete is the next one right here. Delete is those things where you're like, wait, that just should that I put on myself that actually is in integrity with where I am right now. That's like something that I told myself, like, hey, I should do that. But the truth is, you don't have the time, you don't have the energy, and it's not that important. And it's actually, yeah. So a lot of people, like maybe they commit to health goals that are too extreme. Like, hey, they read like Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, and they're like, oh, I'm going to run. And they're like, I should run an hour a day or whatever. Right. And they like carry that around. And then like 4 weeks in, they're still carrying around the should of running an hour a day. But the truth is they've run an hour a day once in the last month. It's like, well, that's probably something to delete. Like maybe it's a 15-minute thing and you can put in a 15, but you go through and you're like, okay, that's not really important anymore. Let's delete that. And you cross out stuff because it's not that important. And then delay is, hey, I want to do this. It's important, but in this season, in this time frame, I'm not going to say I should do this right now. Like this isn't a now thing. This is a future thing. So I'm going to delay. You can even delay making a decision about it and just say, I'm going to delay and make a decision about this in 2 weeks. And so you can just say, hey, look, this isn't even something for me to be thinking about using mental energy on right now. I'm going to push this off 2 weeks. It's not going to hurt anybody. It's not going to hurt me. That's fine. So do, delete, delegate, delay. That's the 4Ds. Any questions so far?
No.
Awesome. Okay, so third is now the do's. Couple things that I do with the do's, because once you do the 4Ds, you're going to have a handful of stuff like, hey, I want to do this today, tomorrow, 3 days from now, this week, next week. So I go through and sort the do's, and especially if I'm in a lot of overwhelm energy, I'll take and cluster all of my do's, and I'll quickly go through and kind of just guesstimate like how much time is it going to take to accomplish it. And if it's like a huge project, like that's going to take 10 or 20 hours, chunk it into smaller steps. That's a couple hours. Because what we're going to do with all your do's is we're going to schedule them on the calendar. Okay. So the main thing is you take your do's and you schedule them and you put them in your calendar and you're like, cool, I need to write chapter 4 of my book. I'm going to work on that on Tuesday morning from 9 to 11 or whatever. And then you pull open your calendar and you start putting your do's in your calendar, your big ones. Your little ones, ideally, I know I'm talking in the evening, but when you do this process, I like to cluster the little ones, because if you realize, like if you do this, you'll realize that there's probably 5 to 10 shoulds in your mind that you're carrying around that'll take you in between 5 to 15 minutes each to accomplish. Like they're less than 30-minute shoulds. They're like just quick. And so what I like to do is gather them all up in a big cluster and get those knocked out as fast as possible. And basically like really make that like my first thing that I attack. And so sometimes it's like, hey, that's going to take me 5. That's going to take me 10. That's going to take me 3 minutes. That's going to take me 15 minutes. Get all that clustered. Maybe it's 2 hours of total time, roughly. Put that on their calendar, or immediately go do those things. Because what happens is, like, as you start knocking those off your list and your should list and all that, you will start feeling like on top of the world. And you'll just like, your overwhelm will just totally collapse and go away. And so often it's just like, even if you can just do like 2 or 3 of those right in this moment and just get them done, like your brain and your body and your energy and your life force, it starts reemerging and uprising instead of sinking and draining. And so just clustering those and just putting on your calendar, like, hey, an hour and a half to knock out these 5 things because they're 5 minutes each or whatever, is really, really powerful. So that's what you do with the do's. I separate them. If it's a huge project, I break it into micro projects and start scheduling. So I'm not scheduling like an 8-hour block, unless some of you work that way. Most people don't, though. And then the small ones, I will cluster them and just knock out all the small ones as fast as possible. And then that totally, like, if you do this process and you put it on your calendar, then guess what? It's not a should in your head anymore. Like if it's on your calendar and you have a plan of action around it, then it's not a should. It's like, you can tell yourself, like, I'm doing that. Like, it's done. Like, I'm doing it. And you're not walking around with like, you also have clarity and focus on where to apply your energy. You have clarity and focus on what to do when you wake up in the morning. It's like, boom, there's Monday stuff. Cool. By deleting the ones that, like, you delete the stuff that's taking up mind space and life force energy. By delegating, you're exercising your leadership, and you're also like taking a stand for what's a high priority for you and what's not. And you're taking a stand to get stuff done through you instead of just by you. And by delaying, you're really prioritizing. If you're walking around with 200 shoulds in your head, or walking around with even 20 shoulds in your head, what's one bird in the hand is better than 2 in a bush, right? Like, it's not realistic to expect. Like, the truth of the matter is, if you have 20 shoulds, you have to choose one to accomplish, or you will stay stuck. You have to, like, the delay tool helps you look at your life and look at your business and look at all the things that are important to you and decide what is deserving of my focus in this moment? Because again, coming back to the now, that's the truth. The now is the now. And you can't do 20 things in the now. You get to decide what is happening now. And so by putting it on your calendar, doing the 4Ds, doing the dump list, you should be able to take like any amount of overwhelm that you're feeling and just like let go of it, and then emerge from this process with like a very clear, like, here's what I want to do, here's what I want to accomplish.
I know you work with clients that are wired in a variety of different ways. Have you ever had a client who you had to adjust this for based on a learning style or how they process information, or is it just one of those tools that you just suck it up and do it even if you don't learn or even if you don't process information this way?
So the root of the issue is the should gap, right? So there's lots of people, like if this isn't a powerful tool for how they process information, then generally where I tackle this problem is on the should level, the way of beingness level. So I don't really teach this any other way. But some people don't use calendars. So for example, if someone isn't used to scheduling stuff in their calendar, then that's fine. So some people will just do like a to-do list for the day, right? Like, hey, here's Monday's to-do list. So whatever way, if the calendar doesn't serve, whatever does serve you, and when you're in flow and you're accomplishing stuff, you can still do this process and just apply it in that way. But I don't have like a specific like modification. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. And that is really helpful if there's someone out there watching that is with us now watching this, if they're thinking, if they have a story around the way that they best learn or their personality, or that doesn't matter. This will serve them since it's getting to the root of the problem, which is the should gap. So
yeah, and I would say I haven't found anybody that if they sit down and it feels like nebulous work, but if they sit down and actually do the dump list, that there's not huge ahas. Because once it's out of here and out of here, and it's actually like on paper with a pen, then you have something objective to start to look at. And it's not caught up in this swirl of like, oh, I should this, I should that, but this and that. And it's just like there, and you can pretty quickly do the 4Ds without even like, you could even just do them mentally. You could be like, oh, delete. Oh, there's my 5 that are small. That's easy. Let's just do that. And then, because it starts to give you something to work with. So if I see someone like kind of push back on the process, it's more around like how much do they use their calendar and how in integrity are they with their calendar. But the first step, especially the dump list and the Ds, the 4Ds, I think it would serve everybody to use that filter. And then what they do with that afterwards, like I think that's different depending on how you find flow and all that. But especially the dump list, I think it's really important to just get that and just get it on paper if you're feeling overwhelmed.
It makes perfect sense. It's that one would immediately feel more confident once he or she takes one step of action, whether that's putting on their calendar and then going as quickly as they can through all the smaller shoulds. It makes perfect. I've experienced that, and I'm sure others have too. That little confidence boost, that hit of dopamine that we get. I got new bags for my car.
Totally.
Yeah, that's so great. Is these types of tools, are they available in your book?
Yes, somewhat. My book really is about finding and destroying limiting beliefs. I wrote it several years ago. It's still a really good book, but it's yeah. So it's very practical. Some of the biggest reviews I get for it on Amazon are just like how practical and down to earth it is. So especially when you're talking about subconscious limiting beliefs that you don't always find, you don't know is the root of like your fear and the root of what's keeping you playing small. My book really, I attempt to really take people on a journey of practical exercises that can help them uncover those things and then dismantle them and step into their greater version of themselves and what they want to accomplish. So I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of practical tools, but it's not like a project or or goal book, if that makes sense. It's not like, hey, here's your goal and here's how you make sure that you accomplish it and not be overwhelmed. It's focused a little in a different way, but it definitely is very practical. Oh, I see that you're on Zoom. I can see that you're green, but I can't hear you.
So sorry. My
Are you back?
is acting up, so it is freezing now. I think you're going to come back though.
Oh, I can hear you now. I can't see you, but I can hear you. Oh, she's gone. Oh no. Let's see. If you have any questions, tell you what, if anyone watching has any questions, go ahead and comment in the comment thread. And I can't see those right now, but what I'll do is I'll log in and I'll answer those questions within the next 24 hours. So if you have any questions about anything that I shared, even if you're watching the replay, oh, you're back.
Awesome. So glad. Good to know it was just me that went away and not the whole thing. So sorry about that.
Oh no, it's all good. I was just telling them if you have questions, I can answer them in the comments, like within the next 24 hours, I can come back and answer. So perfect.
Yes. That's so great. I'm glad that it did that for the first time with a professional going live on Facebook. So that worked out. That worked out super, super well. So yeah, people can connect with you. We'll put the link to your book below. We'll put the link to a very powerful Facebook group, Project Shift, which has changed my life the past 11 weeks, where I have gotten to learn from you and AJ so much. So we'll put the link in there because in the next few months, more people could join Project Shift.
Yeah, we ran a beta group with 32 people and it's going amazing. So happy that you're in there, Meg. It's going great. So we're getting ready to launch another wave through. So join the group. The group that I gave you, Meg, is the free group. So join that group. And then when we launch Project Shift, if you're interested and you kind of like our vibe and what you see and hear from us, you can definitely hear about that launch there. But you can check out my book out on Amazon and also friend me. Feel free to friend me on Facebook. I post content.
Yes. Sometimes that's so funny to hear.
Hey, I'm not creating a huge should gap here, you know?
Yeah, that's so great. And it's so awesome to hear someone who has dominated in online marketing for the past years, right? Is that safe to say? You know what you're doing in online marketing?
Yeah, that's safe to say.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing.
Exactly. Totally know what you're doing. It's so beautiful to hear you say, I post things sometimes. Like, it's so awesome. So it's so great. And I should probably say that with Project Shift, there's so many amazing breakthroughs that I've had the past 11 weeks. And yes, I am plugging Project Shift for members of my own group now, because I know I'm thinking of a few that would have similar results. I tripled my amount of clients that I had, if I'm doing the math right, which is awesome. And I launched my first high ticket course, which is awesome on the professional level. On the professional and personal level, when I entered Project Shift, I was almost over my money block. I'd almost broken through it, where I was totally comfortable monetizing the work that I do and having conversations about money on consultation calls or strategy sessions. I was almost through it. I almost broke through. And then Project Shift was the straw that broke the camel's back, in a sense, or the tipping point that got me totally over it. And then I guess the biggest takeaway, because there's a lot of deep work that goes in, as Jonathan was sharing earlier about the ripple effects into finances, family, faith, fun, and fitness. Every part of your life, it's not siloed. It ripples into each other. Because of Project Shift, I had mended a broken relationship with a family member that I thought could not be healed and restored. And it was because of Project Shift. So on every level, I am so thankful I invested in these past, it's a 12-week program. I have one more week to go, and it's just been amazing. So I highly recommend it to anyone watching this to join the Facebook group in the comments below.
Thank you so much, Meg. I'm so happy to hear that. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time.
Totally.
I will make sure if any questions that are you're tagged in that you see them. I'll make sure if you're not tagged, I'll make sure you are tagged.
Okay, appreciated that. Thank you so much. And I'll get to them within the next 24 hours. So have a great evening.
No should gap about that though.
No, it's good.
Sweet. Well, have a wonderful night.
All right, you too.